Hey there, it's day 91 and this is Juju, and today I'm going to tell a story about walking the Camino de Santiago and how my friend Teresa and I became the legendary ladies of the Camino in 2022. So Teresa and I planned to walk the 500-mile pilgrimage from, you start in France at Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, up in the Pyrenees, and you walk 500 miles to the cathedral at Santiago de Compostela. We planned this trip for 4 years. We were leaving April 15th of 2020, and then the pandemic came. And you can just imagine April in 2020 was not the time to be in Spain. And so we waited until April, of 2022. And so we started walking the Camino. And we had a wonderful send-off. We spent the night you stay in hostels. There's many ways to walk the Camino, but the traditional way is you stay in pilgrim hostels. So we had stayed in a pilgrim hostel. We had a beautiful dinner, met other pilgrims who were going to walk the journey. Among them was Gia and her daughter Mags, who were walking the Camino in segments. And I'm very excited to see just today that Gia and Mags are doing the final segment. So they've been doing a segment each of the year. We were doing it all in one shot. And there were two other pilgrims that were sitting with us at dinner, and they were from Spain. And, I think it was Antonio and Jorge. It's been 4 years, but it was like their 7th Camino. Because one thing that happens with the Caminos is it gets in your blood. And once you walk the Camino, I've done 3 now and will return to the Camino de Santiago next year. So, but they were experienced. So the first day is the toughest. Some people go all the way from Saint Jean to Roncesvalles, but we decided to break it up. Do it. I think it's like 5 miles to Orizon. So we made it to Orizon, and as we pull up to Orizon, we see a ambulance at the hostel, and it turns out that Antonio, this pilgrim who had done 7 Caminos, had had a heart attack and was being taken off in the ambulance. And so this is like day 1, heart attack on day 1. But we have a relaxing, fun afternoon in Orizon. We wake up in the morning and we hear that there is snow, but we think that it's just a little bit on the ground. We don't realize how much snow. The route is still open. Some people are taking taxis and leaving at this point. We decide to carry on. And if you've ever seen the movie The Way, which every American pilgrim that I've met has seen the movie The Way, there's a point at the very beginning where one of the characters gets lost in the fog, and misses the turnoff to Orizon and ends up dying. Well, there we are walking in the fog. We can't tell where we are. There's supposed to be this virgin that you can see, and I remember we stopped at this little cheese stand where the farmer made homemade goat cheese, and we ran into some of the other pilgrims from the hostel. We said, have you seen the virgin? They didn't know what we were talking about. At that point, it was cold. The snow was starting to be on the ground, and Teresa does not have my fat layer, though we added. It was raining. We're huddled under this tent. We look to see that there's a hut. It's maybe like a mile ahead, and then that's the last stop before Orizon. And as we keep climbing, it's a huge, I don't remember what the climb is, but it's a huge climb, and the snow is getting deeper and deeper, and suddenly, Teresa's talking about shivering, and she's like, I just don't think that this is the cold. I think this is beyond the cold. We barely make it to the hut, and she says, I can't go on. I can't. She is at this point shivering uncontrollably, crying, and so some nice pilgrims that are there tried to offer some tea. Oh, we have some nice horses coming behind me. here at Moss Landing. So people were trying to call 911, but you're right on the border of France and Spain. And so they were getting, nowhere as far as trying to call for help, and then a bunch of, new pilgrims come in. It's a very small hut, and there was already probably like 4 people in there. And then this, this man comes in and he's like, "Is everything all right in here?" And I'm like, no, it's not all right. Is there a doctor in the house? And he says, "Well, I am a doctor that specializes in mountain medicine and hypothermia, and I'm from Arizona, Dr. Scott." And if you know who Dr. Scott is, this is an amazing thing. We never saw Dr. Scott after that incident. We always wanted to stop and thank him, but he came in. So this is the thing about the Camino. We would call it CCC, crazy Camino coincidences. That what you need, and they also say the Camino provides, just like at Burning Man, they say the playa provides. But it's so clear on the Camino that what you need is given to you. I asked for a doctor, and I have a doctor show up who specializes in exactly what we needed. He immediately took over the situation, had her, he's like, "It's hypothermia. She's suffering from hypothermia. We need to warm her up and get her down, and she'll be fine." So for me, once I knew that she was going to be okay, and we had someone competent there, and he took off her gloves and her socks. We put her bare feet on my belly. It's kind of like when you're backpacking, if you get hypothermia, you get naked in a sleeping bag to get the body heat. During this time, suddenly there was like 8, South Koreans pushed in. It was like completely crowded in this hunt. And yet Dr. Scott took on the emergency. The firefighters arrived. Later we found out there's a button in the hut that you can press that goes directly to the firefighters in Roncesvalles. It's not that far. They came up in a Jeep, and with big coats, they wrapped up Teresa. I rode down with them. They threw the backpack, the packs in the back. We ended up picking up other pilgrims along the way who were suffering, and they gave us a ride to Roncesvalles. And once Teresa was down and warmed up, everything was fine. But this was picked up as big news that these North American women had to be rescued out of the Pyrenees. When we met other pilgrims, they had heard that we had to be helicoptered out, that there was this huge expense, not that we just got picked up by these sexy, Spanish firefighters who were just wonderful. And we met our friend Robert the next day, though we didn't officially meet, but we saw him at that hostel. He's from Ireland. And then later we reconnected at the Cruz de Faro, and I'll tell that story another time. But he dubbed us the legendary ladies of the Camino, because if you were walking in 2022, everybody had heard about this rescue, and they were like, "What? You're the ones that were rescued out of the Pyrenees?" There was a big article in one of the local papers about it, and so it makes me laugh. But anyone who has walked the Camino is so happy to share the many stories and adventures. You meet people from all over the world. You spend days, hours every day just walking in nature on this ancient pilgrimage, and people are kind and caring and take care of each other. And when I then walked the Portuguese Camino and the Camino onto Finisterre and Lucia. And at that point, rather than calling it the CCCs, we talked at the CCCC, 4 Cs, which is the Crazy Camino Cosmic Connections. Because the people that you meet, you have such a connection with. And I'm still in touch with people that I met on my first Camino, and dear, dear friends to my heart. So I just thought I would share this story of, and throughout the month, since it's, 4 years ago since we did this, I always like to kind of relive those moments, especially as I anticipate going back. And this is just a story from the Camino de Santiago. I encourage anyone who can take the time, whether you do it in small sections or whether you walk the whole thing. It's truly an amazing experience. So this is Juju, unfiltered, unscripted, unedited, coming from the beach. Lead with love and go take a walk.